Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Spartan.
And I'm Pudgy.
We are back reacting to Histories and Law Season 5. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking, what the hell?
It's too soon.
Why is it coming middle of the season? Because our mods have advised us that there is no spoilers in the second half of the season, and watching it halfway through will actually give the second half of Season 5 a lot more, just make things a lot more clear, a lot more fulfilling of an experience, and keep us on track. And hopefully the goal is to give you guys just a better quality reaction because we're more informed about what's going on without any spoilers.
Yeah, we will be much less with the berries, not knowing what's going on, having watched this.
Yeah, our mod teams never failed us. They've always guided us throughout the whole Game of Thrones. So we have complete trust in them, and we've chosen to do this based on their advice. That just means the good news for those of you who don't like these is that at the end of Season 5, it means we'll go straight to 6. So there's a good and a bad, but we're excited to do it. I am, as always, nervous about my attention span because the histories and law are so in-depth.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information and I struggle, but...
You did better in the last one, though. Like, I think the familiarity of the worlds and the characters...
That helped too, yeah.
Hearing some of the stories previously, it did help.
Yeah, understanding more GOT lore overall definitely makes it a lot more digestible for me, especially. Yeah. And the quality of them is improving. I think each season they're going to get better quality, be more interactive, and I can sort of relate there. So, caveat as well, we have been informed by our mods that the last part of this Histories and Law, the Dance of Dragons, which is talked about by a number of people, contains a lot of House of the Dragon spoilers, and we've just decided to just avoid the whole thing. So if you want to watch that at the end, check out this Histories and Law on YouTube, and you can watch the last part to that. We wanted to avoid that, so we're just not watching that at all.
Yeah, we kind of want to maintain our...
ignorance.
Yeah, maintain our ignorance for House of the Dragon. We came into House of the Dragon not knowing anything about Game of Thrones at all, and then we started our Game of Thrones journey, and we do want to keep that as much in the unknown as possible.
As always, the way we usually run these are we watch the little segment by segment. If we have any comments to make, we'll make them in between the segments where we just discuss a little bit what we thought, as well as during, of course.
That's it. There's not really much else to it.
Yeah, that's pretty much. Kick back, enjoy. These are usually a lot longer. Some people really enjoy the length, so get your popcorn, get your sparkling water or whatever you're drinking, your coffee, something healthier maybe. But kick back, relax, and these are a bit longer so you can enjoy it with us. We know many of you also watch these for the first time with us, which is kind of cool. So we hope we can get this out without any troubles as well. The last recent ones giving us a bit of copyright issues. There's some more music in these ones, and for some reason YouTube's being a pain. So bear with us, but the goal is we are trying to get these out as soon as possible. As always, a big thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. We do appreciate all your support a lot. If you do want to support us over there, check out the link in the description where we have early access to our upcoming reactions, as well as the uncut reactions. To everyone over on YouTube, if you enjoyed today's reaction, leave a like, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and let us know in the comments down below what you thought of the History of the Law and whether it was your first time watching with us or not.
All right, let's get into it. So, Braavos. Tycho in Histories explains the history behind the beautiful city of Braavos from the Titan who inhabits the harbour. The Titan that you love.
Yeah, the big statue.
Yeah. To the world-renowned swordsmanship of the city's Braavos.
Season 4 was the first season that we got introduced to, or was it 5?
That we saw the Titan?
5, sorry, yeah. So we've only just been getting introduced to Braavos now, so we're really learning a lot about... Yeah, okay, cool.
Most cities
I think you're going to love this one.
Braavos was built on ships, or more specifically, their cargo. Slaves who rose up against their Valyrian captors and seized the helms of the convoy. Of all crimes,
Valyrian captors,
Valyria punished rebellion most severely. The slaves faced not execution, but the Valyrian mines or labor camps in the most remote and savage colonies if recaptured. And few corners of the world can long remain hidden from Dragonback. However, our histories claim that a group of slave women prophesied the slaves would find shelter in a distant lagoon behind a wall of pine-clad hills and sea stones, where the frequent fogs would help hide the refugees from the eyes of dragon riders passing overhead. And so it proved. Because they had risked their lives in the name of freedom, the mothers and fathers of the new city vowed that no man, woman, or child in Braavos should ever be a slave. This is the first law.
Okay, I'll write that.
Engraved in stone on the arch that spans the long canal.
So they were originally Valyrian slaves.
Itself from the eyes of the world, who called it the secret city. Using a dye derived from a local snail, our captains stained their sails purple to hide their stolen Valyrian ships. Our merchants carried false charts and lied when questioned about their home port. Eventually, one Sea Lord, our elected ruler, decided enough time had passed and initiated the unmasking of Braavos to the world and to Valyria. Of course, it helped that the Iron Bank made handsome restitution to the Dragon Lords for the stolen ships, whilst
always
of course
does, doesn't
refusing
it?
to pay for the value of the slaves themselves. The anniversary of the unmasking is celebrated every year in Braavos with 10 days of feasting and masked revelry, a festival like none other in the known world. Culminating at midnight on the 10th day, when the Titan roars and tens of thousands of celebrants remove their masks as one. Freed of the constraints of secrecy, Braavos quickly grew into the wealthiest and most powerful of the free cities, and, one could argue, the most beautiful. From the
I was going to say, it looks
sprawling
awesome from
Sea
here.
Lords with its menagerie of strange beasts and birds,
I love the purple.
to the imposing Palace of Justice and the aqueduct we call the Sweetwater River that bears fresh water from the mainland, Braavos is without rival in either engineering or elegance.
Titan looks
The
sick.
temples of Braavos
Especially with
are
that
also
glowing
famed
face
throughout
mask.
the world and wondrous to behold. Descended from 100 different peoples, the Braavosi honor 100 different gods. The temple
Holy
of the
shit.
singers is the foremost.
Well, 7
of
was a
these,
lot.
being the faith of the slave women whose prophecies led our ancestors here. The Lord of Light has a great temple as well, where his worshippers have grown ever more numerous in the past 100 years. Yet less numerous, and even some forgotten faiths still have temples deep in the heart of the city, on the Isle of the Gods. But the beauty of Braavos is not only in her buildings. Braavosi swordsmanship is renowned throughout the world. Our bravos eschew the armor and long swords of
Serious.
Westerosi knights, preferring
what I was
speed,
thinking of.
agility, and slender blades. The greatest bravos call themselves water dancers, after the custom of dueling upon the moon pool near the Sea Lord's
What did you
palace.
say to Arya? I'm pretty sure.
By tradition, the greatest of all the bravos is the First Sword, who commands the personal guard of the Sea Lord and protects his person at all public events. Once chosen, Sea Lords serve for life. Inevitably, there are always those who wish to cut that life short to effect some change in policy. Though not
Sea
even the
Lord, we've never
First
seen the Sea
Swords
Lord
are the
yet.
true guardians of Braavos. That honor
Wow,
goes
that's
to the
sick.
Titan, who protects the entrance to the harbor. With his proud head and fiery eyes looming close to 400 feet above the sea, the Titan is a fortress of a kind never seen before or since. His eyes are huge beacon fires, lighting the way for returning ships into the lagoon.
Oh, they're lighting it
Within
up
his
in
long
People
there.
are actually in
body
there.
are
I didn't know
halls and
that.
Chambers, murder holes,
Wow.
and arrow slits. Enemy
wow.
ships can be steered onto the rocks by the watchmen inside the Titan, and stones and pots of burning pitch can be dropped onto the decks of any that attempt to pass between the Titan's legs.
I had
That's
no
so
idea
cool.
the
This
statue
has
was that
seldom been
powerful.
necessary, however. Not since the Century of Blood has any enemy been so rash as to attempt to provoke the Titan's wrath. Should an enemy break through into the lagoon, however, he would face the walls of Braavos, again not of stone like other cities, but of ships. The arsenal of Braavos can build one of our famous purple-hulled war galleys in a single day. All the vessels are constructed following the same design, so that all the many parts can be prepared in advance, and skilled shipbuilders work upon different sections of the vessel simultaneously.
Work smarter,
to
not
hasten the
harder.
labor. To organize such a feat of engineering is unprecedented. One need only look at the raucous, confused construction in the shipyards around the world to see the truth of this. Let us imagine that even the arsenal, great as it is, failed us. An enemy who could defeat both the Titan and our fleet would be strong indeed. But Braavos does not depend only on statues and ships. We also have iron and gold.
Of course you do.
That was a lot more information on Braavos than we had, so I
Yeah.
think I can see how that's helpful.
I wonder who these voices are.
Yeah, I was trying to think. I think we got written down somewhere. By Tycho Nestoris.
Oh, okay. So that's a
I remember.
name.
It's so familiar, but I don't remember now.
It does sound familiar, but I don't know who that is.
Could definitely tell the visuals also got a big upgrade. Like they're
Oh,
a lot
yeah.
more interactive. They're sharper quality, more moving. So they always get better from each one. And they've changed these too. See how like That's the intro part. I thought that was just the
Yeah.
beginning, but it's for everyone.
Yeah, a bit of a budget upgrade. But it was interesting. So the first law of Bravos is that no women, children, men are slaves, which I absolutely love that. That's a world that Talissa literally dreamed of.
So Danny's sort of making Bravos 2.0 in some
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, true. Trying to anyways.
Yeah.
I found it interesting that the Bravosi fight with slender blades because Arya literally fights with needle and her teacher was Sirio. So
It's almost like it was all, well, I think Sutton was also
Yeah.
telling us that it was all almost meant to be, from getting Needle to Bravosi teacher to Jack and Hagar, being from Bravos. It was all sort of foreshadowing that she would be a warrior of Bravos.
that's why I absolutely love the story writing, something that you wouldn't even think of. All those little like nods to a future adventure and then it happens, you know?
That's why I can already imagine like a rewatch.
Oh.
We'd just be like, dude, holy crap, like so much more
Yeah.
happening. So the Faceless Men, interesting. I didn't know that'd be a part of this, but makes sense from what we've seen. I'm excited, especially to learn more about these. 'Cause
Yeah, same.
This has been like a real big mystery for us. So we've got Tycho Nestoris, again, he's talking, reveals the mystery behind the Faceless Men, the shadowy group who operate out of the House of Black and White, which has also been a bit of a mystery. This House of Black and White, it's a very new house.
Maybe we'll finally get to find out what was happening with those people that were like falling asleep or dying.
So, question for you guys, is the House of Black and White actually considered a house like House Stark and House Lannister? Like, are they considered a house like that? Or is it just literally the House of Black and White? Like, I don't know.
I mean, I would assume so, but even if it wasn't, I'm sure people made it a house of faceless men.
All right, let's go.
Who are the faceless men? It depends on who is asking. To a penitent, they may be relief. To a victim, they may be vengeance. To a lord, they may be an incredible expense. And to the Iron Bank, they may be just another asset. Nobody but the faceless men know their origin, though the order is rumored to predate the founding of Bravos. We know only that they reside in, or are somehow aligned with, the House of Black and White, that odd and lonely building where few who enter ever leave. Some whisper that those werewolf
No way.
doors open not on a house, but onto the world of the dead,
We've seen that
from whence
too.
the faceless men rise when summoned. We can dismiss such foolishness as we do the fishwives who spread it. The House of Black and White is merely a temple, consecrated to the many-faced god, and filled with statuary of his many faces.
Okay, so
The
another
old
god.
gods of Westeros, the Lord of Light, the Black Goat, the Lion of Night, the Weeping Lady, the Stranger. Perhaps now you understand what is worshipped here.
The strangers
And
from
along
the
with them,
Seven.
other gods whom none alive now recognize, brought here long ago by sailors who never came again. Unlike the priests of other religions, the servants here preach no sermons and perform no ceremonies.
Okay.
As far as one can see, silence and solitude form the whole of their worship, as well as collecting the occasional devotee. If one wants to engage a faceless man, one visits the House of Black and White and pays the price. As for what that may be, those who have paid it rarely speak of it.
Oh
For make no
no.
mistake,
What did
from
Ari
the
get herself
moment
into?
the faceless men accept your offer, the man you named is dead, though he doesn't know it. Perhaps not that day, perhaps not
Oh,
that
yeah, we've seen
but
that
soon,
in Arya's deal.
inevitably. Many would say you are as much his murderer as if you'd swung the axe yourself. Just as many would say, that's the point.
Interesting.
I mean, if that foreshadows at all to how powerful Arya is going to become, then crazy. Like, if she can fulfill the kind of killing that Jack and Hagar did when he was helping her, because she's trained to become a faceless man, right? And she gets that
Yeah.
sort of ability, then, she's going to be insane.
I just don't know if I fully see her buying into that, you know? It's like a fine line with Arya because we saw with the sword, she didn't want to fully become faceless. She still wants to be attached to her house, her family.
I agree. I see her taking a degree of the teaching of philosophy, but making them her own.
But it's interesting because they say that people who come in never really leave. I don't
In
know.
most cases. Obviously, we've seen that's not true with Jack and
Yeah.
Hagar,
True.
But with a majority of people, I mean, we're sort of seeing them drop like flies. So
Yeah. So that means they're actually dying, and then maybe through death they become a faceless man. Like, I don't know.
I think they're just dead. I think it's that those who can truly let go of their ego, still running off what I've been chatting about in the previous reactions, about having to sacrifice your ego and, you know, sort of self. Those who can truly let go of it survive, and those who cannot or just are so entrenched in themselves end up dying because it's too rough. I mean, there's probably deeper you could delve, but that's what I'm sort of coming to at the moment.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so this is Volantis. This is
Where Shay's from, yeah?
No, Shay's from Pentos. Volantis is Talissa.
That's right. I was
Yeah,
confused
my
those two,
girl
yeah.
Talissa. Rest in peace.
So you still like Talisa, yeah? But
I
Shay's,
still like
Shay's sort of a
Talissa.
snake.
Yeah, well, was a snake, yes.
We're still sort of in the grey area with that. We actually got to solidify exactly what happened to that.
What do you mean? Oh, like between time
there's different
and
book
stuff?
interpretations, different series interpretations. Exactly what was she, you know, playing? Was she opportunistic? As all we won't get into it now, but there's a lot of grey area with that.
So Varys discusses the history of Volantis, which will be quite cool. The oldest of the free cities from its humble beginnings as the first colony of Valyria.
Awesome. Always love hearing Varys' voice.
Same.
Valyria was young, and as the young do, it sought to spread its seed. Its first daughter was Volantis, an outpost on the mighty Roine River at the frontier of the Empire.
I like how he puts
There,
that.
the Dragon Lords raised the famous Black Walls, seamless fused dragonstone 200 feet tall, and so thick that 6
Dragonstone,
four-horse
holy shit.
chariots can race along the battlements side by side, as they do each year to celebrate the founding
Wow.
of the city. To this
They
day,
can use their Dragonstone
only
against the
those
White
who can
Walkers.
trace their ancestry back to old Valyria are allowed
mean,
to
it's
dwell
dragon
within
glass.
the Black Walls.
Yeah,
None
shit.
are even permitted to set foot inside without an express invitation of a scion of the old blood, meaning, of course, the ancient and noble blood of foot soldiers. For the city's first 100 years, its only inhabitants were its garrison. But where soldiers go, vice follows. Taverns and brothels began to sprout up outside the Black Walls, and merchant ships began to call as well, bearing the favored trade of the summer sea, slaves. The East Bank filled with homes, shops, and society. And so the taverns and brothels moved to the West Bank, where foreigners, sellswords, and pirates erected their own shadow city of fornication, drunkenness,
City.
and murder. In time, the
Damn.
West Bank became
Sounds
such
like a
a
rough city.
cesspit of crime and depravity that the Volantines had no choice but to send their slave soldiers across the Roine to restore order and some semblance of decency. Like all such missions, they succeeded, they left, then they failed. When the Volantines grew weary of shipping
Kind of what
their
happened to
soldiers
Danny.
across the Roine every year, they built the famous Long Bridge of Volantis, strong enough to support the weight of 1,000 elephants and many more soldiers.
Oh, wow.
The Long
Shit.
Bridge of Volantis stands today as the longest bridge in all the known world. The Volantine rulers intended the bridge to spread the civilization of the East Bank to the west. Instead, the depravity of the West Bank spread east. Shops, temples, taverns, inns, and brothels line the bridge. Most 3
Now
or
it's
4 stories
infested.
tall, with each floor overhanging the one beneath it. One can buy anything on
Shit.
the Long Bridge, or steal it if one's hands are quick enough. But if they're not,
Oh, we saw that,
though
remember?
at least half the deck
Oh,
committed no
shit.
greater crime than displeasing a master. For in
saw that when
Volantis there are
Tyrion was
5
walking.
slaves for every free man, a proportion matched only by the cities of Slavers Bay. The Volantine masters mark their property with facial tattoos, permanent and scarring.
Oh, we
which
saw
denote
that too,
the vocation
yeah.
of the slave.
And
Slave
Tulsa explains
soldiers wear
originally.
green tiger stripes upon their faces. Slave whores are marked by tears beneath one eye. The slaves that collect the dung of horses and elephants are marked with flies. The drivers of the hathays, the carts pulled by the small elephants of Lantas, are marked with wheels, and so on. A master may
God.
give his slave freedom, but no man can give a new face. Is it any wonder, then, that the slaves and freed men have turned
True.
in such great numbers to the priests who preach of a cleansing fire? The Temple of the Lord of Light in Volantis is said to be the greatest in all the world, larger even than the great
Oh, wow.
Sept of Baelor. All who serve
Oh,
within
wow.
this mighty temple are slaves, bought as children and trained to become priests, temple prostitutes, or warriors. And one could argue
Temple
its adherents
prostitutes.
Yeah, what the
outside
hell?
the temple are slaves as well. In mind, if not in body. Magic frees nobody, except its practitioner, to do what he will with those who can't. Just as the black walls free the old blood to see what they will. Without those, they don't. But one must wonder how much longer such freedoms will endure. When across Essos, one hears the sound of chains breaking, of slaves rising, of dragons roaring.
Damn, is Danny gonna come here as well?
Daughter of Valyria,
Holy crap.
but it is not the last.
Oh, that's like
Oh,
Drogon
man.
or something.
Yeah. So I wonder
Damn.
if Danny's building up like the ultimate slave for her. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, I think where she is now in Marine, she's really trying to see how to balance it, how to actually make it work. Because the first two or three, she conquered and left, and then obviously went back to its old ways. And then now in Marine, she's just struggling, fighting that battle, that challenge. So yeah, hopefully she'll end up in Volantis.
Yeah. Okay. Damn. That's cool. There's a lot more in depth into that bridge. We saw Tyrion crossing that bridge, and we saw the
hands.
the hands and with tattoos. We saw those, and that's a bit more explanation of that. Although Varys also explained that in that episode as well.
So the Lord of the Light is one of the main religions practiced in Volantis.
Yeah, it has one of the biggest temples, so obviously it's pretty big.
Yeah.
Interesting. So many different like factions and ideologies, and the
And how
way
it came
Game of Thrones
about.
manages it all. I'm impressed with that.
I know, but each one has so much detail, like to the fact that, they've got all these different tattoos. This is how they were founded. This is the struggle between them, and then like how things spread. Oh, it's just crazy. Wow.
So the fighting pits of Marine, which we know that Danny recently reinstated,
Yeah.
but only to free men. Dario Naharis discusses the history of the fighting pits of Marine from the point of view of a seasoned fighter.
He is a seasoned fighter.
People love blood when it's not their own. But tavern
True.
brawls are
Fair enough.
boring, and wars never have good seating. Thus, the famed fighting pits of Marine opened shortly after the city's own founding. And I heard that originally the combats were a blood sacrifice to the gods of Geese, the empire that founded Marine. Some still believe they are, but the Giscari Empire died a long time ago and their gods went with them. Yet the pits remained open, filling the city's purse with gold from the ends of the earth. I suppose the fighting pits are a blood sacrifice after all. Only the gods changed. In the pits, slaves fought each other to the death for fame and glory. And gold
Just
for
like
their
him.
masters. A lot
Yeah.
of gold.
It's like the
Enough for the
gladiators.
masters to invest in rigorous training. Slaves were taught to fight like Dothraki screamers.
At least they
bearded
were
priests
trained.
Of Norvos, ironborn reavers, Westerosi knights, Cohoric hunters, and Lysine pirates. Whatever would excite a crowd. After all, everyone wants to know who is the best. And, of course, who isn't. For the crowds don't come
Especially
only to see
you.
men fight well. I've seen the masters release tigers, lions, and other exotic beasts into the arena to
Shit.
chase less costly slaves. Barely
Holy
trained,
shit.
if at all. A whore once told me of an amusement in one of the less prestigious pits. One boy was rolled in honey, one in blood, and one in rotting fish. And then a bear was unleashed, and the crowd wagered on which boy the bear would eat first.
Little
I never heard
boys.
who won. Then again, it was obvious.
Oh
The
my
masters.
god.
Did such
Yeah,
stories worry you?
exactly.
Oh
Of
wow,
course
dude.
not. I could fight, and for a good fighter, life was luxurious. Thousands of people chanted his name when he stepped into the pits. He would eat the choicest meats, drink the finest wines, and sleep on exotic furs. Often not alone. Women would fling
you can see
themselves
why
at
it's
him
important
or
for
sneak
people.
into his chambers to wait for him after a fight. Foreign princesses, priestesses, and even the wives and wayward daughters of masters. He never had to fear punishment. For a great fighter could be worth 300,000 honors. Another
Wow.
wife was always cheaper.
Oh.
And when this renowned fighter
Shit.
finally fell, for all fighters will in time, his name would be inscribed into the gates of fate among the other valiant dead. I remember
Wow.
once trying to count the names. But the gates opened before I finished, and another fight began.
Damn.
His fight Damn.
Wow. That adds a bit of context and just anticipation, I guess, to the pits that we're probably going to get to see at some stage.
Do you reckon Dario will fight in the pits again?
I don't know. Would he want to put himself back there? Maybe in search of more glory. I don't know. He's always a bit of an intriguing guy.
Yeah. I didn't realize how big it was for the tradition and the culture of Marine. Like, they literally have names carved into the walls before you even go out to fight. So it's like, what an overwhelming feeling. Like, all these people before you, and you want to be one of the greats, and you get all that, like, glory and...
And they're all dead, so you sort of know the goal is for you to fight till you die.
Yeah.
For most, anyway.
Wow. So the many-faced god, the mysterious Jagan Hagar, our man, narrates the history of the many-faced god and those who commit their lives to serving him.
A young man walks beside a girl across a flowered field. Spring has come, and this girl is his life. He prays. A child climbs a tree to watch the sunset over the fields. Summer is ending, and the harvest is life for his village. He prays. A hunter tracks a boar through the woods. Winter is coming, and this boar
It's like all
is
the
life
months,
for his family.
the
He
seasons.
prays. But to whom do they pray? The world
Yeah, I was
has
waiting
as
for the
many
point.
answers as there are men to answer. But walk far enough, climb high enough, hunt long enough, and a man shall find only one. One God.
That's what he
with
said to
many
Arya.
faces. In
Yeah,
the
okay,
faith
I
of the
like it.
seven,
Interesting.
He is the stranger who guides men from this life to the next. Few seek his favor, or at least, few realize that they do. In the north of Westeros, he is one of the nameless old gods, staring out from the weirwood trees and the snow. In the Iron Islands, he is the drowned god, calling men down to his watery hall. What is dead may never die, but rises again, harder and stronger. In the Far
Okay.
East, he is the Lion of Night, who fathered the world's first emperor on the Maiden Maid of Light, and whose wrath
So all have
nearly
different
ended the
faces in
world.
different places.
In Volantis, he is the Lord of Light, whose followers feed
Okay.
into the flames to beg his favor.
So you're sort of saying everyone's God is just
In
the
Leaf,
same
he is
thing, the same
weeping
symbolic
lady
thing.
who sheds her tears
like
for
that.
the living, soon to die. In Qohor, he is the Black Goat, and he feeds on blood offerings every day. On holy days,
Wow.
he is offered condemned criminals, and in times of great crisis, he may even be offered the noblest children of the city to beg his protection. Does he accept their gift? Well, the city still stands. For the poor, he is the hooded wayfarer. For soldiers, he is Bacalon, the pale child. For sailors, he is the moon pale maiden and the Merling king. In the house of black and white, however, he is all of them, and none of them.
I like that. That's really
He
well
is the
put.
many-faced god, and wherever a man turns, there he is. Men
Yeah.
come from every corner of the world to know him, to
Yeah,
beg his favor
right.
and seek his gift, for themselves, if their life has grown too hard, or for others who are making it so. It is all the same to the many-faced god. Vala Dohaeris, all men must serve him, beggars
Bala
and kings.
Daharis.
Vala Morgulis, all men must die, good and evil. Men worship as they will, but at the end of every road stands the
Look at the
many-faced
face.
god.
Yeah, it's
Waiting.
cool.
Wow.
Did not disappoint, as I didn't expect it not to disappoint.
I mean, Jack and Hagar never disappoints.
Really cool. So his basic premise is that every god just pretty much represents different people's reaching out for the same thing or looking
Yeah.
for the same meaning, the same greater cause or greater purpose, you know, connected to something beyond themselves and the many
Yeah.
faces that the gods have. So it's interesting. Everyone's debate is, are there 7 gods? Are there 100 gods? Is it just the Lord of Light? And Jaqen seems the most sensible to me personally anyway, where he sort of acknowledges they're all coming from the same intrinsic desire from the people. And so it's the many faces that different people have needed in different times. I like Jaqen's approach there a lot.
Yeah, so do I. It's kind of a representation of what the world is like today with so many different gods and religions and things like that. Everyone has a different view and they think their view is right, and rightly so. But Jaqen's interpretation of it, or the House of Black and White, their interpretation of it is perfect for me in general. Like you said, it is that intrinsic desire or just search for knowledge or
Search for meaning and to
Yeah.
understand what the purpose is, And I think we both probably very much align with Jaqen's view in retrospect to Game of Thrones. If we were to translate to real life, we'd be more on Jaqen's sort of interpretation of that. Yeah,
yeah, maybe we're the house of black and white.
maybe we are. The river Rhine, something. Varys elaborates on the history of the mighty river Rhine, the body of water that separates the east and west banks of the city of Volantis.
Okay. So a lot of this is really about Essos so far anyways.
Yeah, very Essos focused. That's true. Which I wonder if that's foreshadowing the second half of season 5.
True.
Being very Essos focused. Already the first half's been a lot more than we're used to, so.
And we've been wanting this for a while. We've always been intrigued.
Westeros has mighty rivers, but none of them compare to the Rhine. It is said that there is no stream or puddle in western Essos but drains to Mother Rhine. No doubt an exaggeration. Until one sees the river, at its widest, a man in the center can't see a shore to either side.
Oh,
The greatest
wow.
of Mother Rhine's children were the Rhoynar, a civilization as ancient and grand as old Guise. Fishers, traders, scholars, workers of wood, stone and metal. The Rhoynar raised their elegant cities from the headwaters of the Rhine down to her mouth, each lovelier than the last. For many centuries, the Rhoynar lived in relative peace. When invaders swept down from the hills, the Rhoynar, women and men, would don silver-scaled armor, fish-head helms, tall spears, and turtle shell shields.
So even the women were like
If the enemy
soldiers.
did not laugh themselves away, it was said that Mother Rhoyne would whisper the enemy's secrets to her children.
Laugh themselves
and
away.
the Rhoynish wizards could raise watery walls to drown their foes.
Wow.
Whatever magic the Rhoynar may have had, it wasn't enough. When Valyrian colonists first arrived, the Rhoynar embraced them, for all men were welcome to share the bounty of Mother
Valyrian
Rhoyne.
colonists, okay.
Perhaps a water people should have been more cautious of strangers who exalted fire and blood. Legend
True.
has it that one day the Valyrians netted and butchered one of the giant turtles the Rhoynar held sacred. As a result, thousands were killed or enslaved. Cities and towns were burned, drowned, and rebuilt. In these wars, the Valyrians
Holy
emerged
crap.
as victorious more often than not. The princes of the Rhoynish cities, fiercely proud of their independence, fought alone, whilst the Valyrian colonies aided one another. Eventually, the Rhoynish princes ceased their squabbling and united behind Prince Garin, who led the largest army Essos had ever seen, against 100,000 Valyrian colonists, 100 war elephants, and 3
Oh,
dragon
no.
lords.
I don't know if that
Thousands
ended
burned,
well.
but thousands
Three
more sheltered in
dragons.
the shallows of the river, whilst the Rhoynish wizards raised enormous water spouts against the foe's dragons.
Oh,
Rhoynish archers brought down 2 of the dragons, whilst the third
Shit.
fled, wounded. And
They actually had a
thereafter,
chance.
The Rhoynar named Garin the Great. But Mother Valyria
Garin the
proved
Great.
just as caring as Mother Rhoyne. When Garin the Great marched his army against Volantis, 300 Valyrian dragons descended from the sky. Tens of thousands burned whilst
Oh,
others rushed into the river.
shit.
But the fires burned so hot that the
300
water boiled and
dragons.
turned to steam. Garin the Great was captured alive and made to watch as Valyrians butchered every last man. So many that their blood turned the great harbour of Volantis red as far as the eye could see. Then they forced Garin to watch as they marched on his own city and enslaved all the women and children his army had left behind. This is
Damn.
that Prince Garin called out Mother Rhoyne to curse the Valyrians, and she in turn flooded the city with foul waters and a damp fog that caused the skin of the Valyrians to harden and crack, and thus was born Grayscale.
Grayscale.
Fearing a similar fate, another
right.
Rhoynish ruler, Princess Nymeria, led her own people into every ship, skiff, and raft they had.
That's one that Arya
and
loves.
fled Essos. Eventually, after much hardship, they landed in sun-swept and bone-dry Dawn.
Dawn. Yeah, she's the one that started Dawn. The Dawnish people.
Now Valyria has followed the Rhoynar out of this world, and her daughters have grown into free cities, wealthy and powerful and proud. Still, Mother Rhoyne flows on, past ancient ruins and bustling harbours, sweeping all man's kingdoms to the sea.
Shit.
Wow. Now we know the origins of Grayscale.
300 dragons. What the hell?
Dude, whoever had that kind of power, man. Wow. If that's not an exaggerated myth from the history books, then dude, Valyria could have just conquered anything and everything.
I know.
Look what Aegon did just with the few dragons that he had, let alone 300.
I
Holy
know.
shit.
Shit. And then, yeah, the grayscale. Wow. They've literally covered everything in this. Like,
Yeah, a lot of history. This is true history and lore, like as true as any of them.
so it's interesting. So a lot of these diseases and things like that are thought to be made out of magic.
Or curses, yeah.
Yeah, which is not very far-fetched for this world. I mean, we've got dragons, we've got like all these witches cursing, we've got Dany in the flames, the Lord of Light. Like, it's crazy. I mean, what's his name again? Who got brought back to life so many times?
Yeah, I can't remember, but yeah.
Thoros of Mir? Is he the one that got...
Thoros?
Thoros?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so this is more on Grayscale and the Stone Men, and we actually saw that last episode in episode 5 of season 5. We
Yeah,
saw
our boy Jorah.
Jorah.
Infected.
Jorah got infected, and
But we do know through Stannis' daughter that it can be stopped. So
yes, but will he have someone in time? We don't know. So yes, Qyburn discusses the dreaded Grayscale. Yes, the dreaded Grayscale for Jorah at the moment. Its fabled origins and its many treatments or lack thereof.
Okay.
Well, I'm hoping the many treatments are there for Jorah.
Qyburn will have an interesting take on it because he's sort of like non-conventional.
Yeah.
Few afflictions are more feared than grayscale, and far past the point of reason. A legend calls it Prince Garin's curse, after an ancient eastern prince whom the Valyrians hung in a cage and forced to watch the immolation of his city and people. As his city burned under dragon flame, this prince called on his god for vengeance, and a thick fog of foul humours rose from the Rhoyne to smother the Valyrians with grayscale. But if diseases could be called down by the vengeful, we'd have no health in the world. More likely the disease predates the Valyrians entirely, confined to some remote region of Essos, and only spread throughout the world once the Valyrians linked the continent with roads and dragons.
His more scientific mind.
The disease begins as a rash. The afflicted flesh stiffens, calcifies, and cracks, and assumes the disease's nominal hue. Victims are graciously spared pain, as the disease dulls sensation in the infected limbs. But the disease is insidious, and slowly it creeps over the skin and into the organs.
Oh, man.
Once the infection reaches the brain, feral madness replaces humanity,
Which we
and
saw.
the transformation to a
Shit.
stone man is complete. There is no consensus on treatment. Some maesters advocate mustard poultices, vinegar rinses, and scalding hot baths. Others claim only 3 cures: axe, sword, and cleaver. Hacking off afflicted
Which I
parts
get.
does sometimes stop the spread of the disease, but not always. Many a man has sacrificed an arm or foot only to find the other going grey. Those who have been miraculously cured of grayscale are few, and usually were subjected to so many treatments that isolating the responsible cure is impossible.
True.
Besides, few
Shireen is
maesters,
example of
priests,
that.
or healers have the courage for such experiments as would prove a cure. Grayscale is highly contagious, being known to spread from even the slightest contact with an infected person. Hence the current
Tyrion.
occupation of Valyria by the Stone Men, exiled from their homelands at the first sign of the disease.
Oh
What
my
they
god.
do there, with their final months or even years, for grayscale is a slow killer. No one knows. No one wants to find out.
But he looks like he studied them
Yeah.
alive.
Who knows? I mean, I'll give it to Qyburn. If anyone can find a cure, it's going to be him. Shit.
Yeah, wow. Damn, the stone man. And so in Shireen's case, hers was on her face. I wonder if that would have spread to her brain even quicker.
Well, it stopped.
Yeah, if it hadn't been
Yeah.
treated.
But yeah, he's right. Like, Stannis literally said there were so many different treaters and healers and things like that. You really don't know which one actually helped. Could have been a combination of all of them. Could have been just luck. I do hope in Jorah's case that he can just chop off his arm and that's it. He did say some people survive like that, but again, others don't. But that makes me wary and anxious for Tyrion. Like, he has had contact with Jorah.
Yeah, I know. That'll be interesting, dude. There's so much going on. Shireen's the only proof that there's some sort of way to stop it. One can hope, but We'll find
I
out.
can't lose either of those men, especially not Tyrion to
Look,
Grace.
I think you're definitely going to lose one of them at some point. I don't want to lose either of them either, but it's Game of Thrones. We lose everyone, so surprised there's any characters left for the story.
I know.
The Great Masters of Marine. Missandei elaborates on the Great Masters of Marine and their history as the ruling class before the arrival of Daenerys Targaryen.
Do you know who Miss Sunday is? Who is it?
Grey Worm's love interest. Not dumb. I knew I was waiting for you to do the little test part where it's like, oh, let's test him.
The Great Masters of Marine, as if calling themselves such could make them so. Thousands of years ago, during the height of the Giscari Empire, Marine was second only to Old Guise in wealth and glory. A paradise by the sea, if one didn't mind the constant clinking of chains and cracking whips. Slaves built Marine, and on their backs the city rested like a litter. Then came the dragons of Valyria. The masters of Old Guise would not bow, so they burned.
Of course
The
not.
Valyrians tore down their walls, burned their pyramids to ash, and sowed their fields with salt and skulls. An
Wow.
old
Shit.
slave woman once told me that the Valyrians intended to break the chains of the Giscari slaves, absorbing them into the Valyrian freehold where every man held a vote. But the great masters of Marine received their new overlords in the great temple, plying them with gold, wine, and all the wealth that slavery had brought them. And the Valyrians instead took up the whip themselves.
Of course.
I do not believe it. As their empire expanded, the Valyrians needed more and more bodies to feed their mines and colonies, when no wage could ever tempt a free man. The Great Masters merely accommodated their new customers, staying rich as the Giscari Empire crumbled. After the doom fell on Valyria, the Great Masters worried for their fortunes. By this time, the Valyrians were their greatest providers and purchasers of slaves.
Greedy, greedy,
Then
greedy.
the Dothraki horse lords swept out of the plains of Essos and proved
That's
to be
cool.
as fond of slaving as the dragon lords before them. The Great Masters grew richer still. For the first time in its history, the Great Masters alone ruled Marine, and chaos ruled the rest of the world. The fighting pit swallowed men who in previous centuries would have filled the ranks of the Valyrian armies. Without these soldiers to maintain order, the wealthy had to buy their own, which the good masters of Astapor were more than willing to sell. If the buyer's nerves still needed calming, the wise masters of Yonkai could sell him further release. The great masters, the good masters, the wise masters. Yet none was so great, good, or wise that they recognized our queen for what she was. Her ancestors had destroyed them, then become them. Perhaps they assumed she would bend as easily.
I do get that
Our queen
actually.
does not bend. She breaks.
Damn, dude.
Our queen does not bend,
What a way
she
to
breaks.
what a way to build Danny up.
I know.
I respect it.
I do. Damn. So I do get that perspective though. So her ancestors literally conquered them, killed them, burned them, and then became them. So I do get why they're kind of revolting. And then Danny's here taking everything away from them that they've it's just their way of life. That's what they know.
Yeah, it makes me kind of sad though, in a way, that the Dothraki, just having them mentioned in this, it's like in season 1, there was so much promise to them. They were going to travel the seas, this, that, and we haven't really seen much of them at all. I don't know if we'll see much of them again or not, but they're just almost like a lot of respect on the Valyrian people, and they've sort of always been an interesting prospect. The Dothraki people have just vanished. They're a memory in the world at the moment.
Even if we do see them, it's kind of bittersweet because Drogo isn't with
I
them.
know. I just think of like Drogo, the ambition, what he was going to give Danny, the world he was going to conquer, and I was intrigued by his story.
Same.
And then for him just to go and then just his people and that's it, you sort of forget about them. Yeah. Just that's what it reminded me of.
The Lord Commanders. Interesting. So Alistair Thorne discusses the importance of the Lord Commander to the Night's Watch and the qualities necessary for a successful leader. Let's see if our boy Jon Snow fits into that.
I wonder how many secret jabs is going to be towards Jon in this.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
Each brother of the Night's Watch swears a sacred oath to protect the realms of men. That doesn't mean pissing about, waiting for the cold to finally put an end to you. It means bleeding. It means fighting. It
I
means
respect
that value.
the
Yeah.
wall and hunting down those who mean harm to the realm. So how do you get 1,000 rapists and thieves to fight together, to bleed together? That's the burden of the Lord Commander. He keeps the
Yeah,
builders
right.
building, the rangers ranging, and the stewards stewarding, or else it all falls apart.
Yeah.
Each Lord Commander is chosen from and by his fellow brothers, and he serves for life. A long time ago, you may have had men from Queensgate and Long Barrow and the other 16 castles of the Wall come to Castle Black for an election. These days, you'd be lucky to scrape a few dozen from Eastwatch and the
Yeah,
Shadow
they're all
Tower,
like empty.
or however many they can spare who cast votes in their stead. All the same, the brothers are allowed to name whomever they think worthy of the title. Then we vote until one man receives a majority, however long it takes. Some elections have lasted less than an hour. Some have lasted weeks. One even lasted 2 years.
Shit.
Maester
Wow.
Aemon has said there have been 997 Lord Commanders since the
Wow.
Night's Watch was founded. Back then
Wow.
we had true soldiers, men of honor and strength. Now look who mans the wall. Bastards, peasants who stole a sheep to bugger, and fat little nobles who weren't worthy of their Lord Father's land. But the
Oh,
Lord Commander must
Sammy.
find a place for them all, and turn these walking piles of horse dung into soldiers of the Night's Watch. Though we haven't always been so lucky to have such men to lead us. We've had cowards and fools as well. Our tyrants and our madmen. Runsel Hightower tried to bequeath the watch to his bastard. Roderick Flint thought to make himself king beyond the wall. Tristan Mudd, Mad Mark Rankenfell, Robin Hill, each nearly destroyed us with their foolishness. 600 years ago, the commanders at Snowgate and the Nightfort even went to war against each other.
Wow.
The simpering Lord Commander asked them politely to lay aside their quarrel, and incredibly they did, because they joined forces to murder him. The Stark and Winterfell had to
Jeez.
intervene and take both their heads to save the Night's Watch.
Which
Oh, it's
Stark?
Now we've got more mouths than we can feed. A southern king in our castle, and cells full of wildlings, and no Lord Commander, since the last was betrayed by his own men. We need a new
John
leader.
is the Lord
I think
Commander.
this is
A
before the
man
vote.
respected enough to hold the watch together in this dark hour. A leader strong enough to make sure that the Night's Watch survives the coming winter, no matter the cost.
Let me know who that is.
I don't mind Salus's.
He grew on me a lot too,
perspective.
yeah.
Yeah. He does have a passion behind the Night's Watch thriving and
And he's a genuinely good warrior and has probably some good leadership-like qualities.
yeah.
I think his bitterness and spitefulness as why he was sent to the wall has kind of, gotten the better of him in later years. But
Yeah. And also, he probably thinks he's the best man for the job. And then when other people are actually the better man for the job, I get that. Like, that bruises your ego a little bit and everything that you think you've lived for. So,
he won my respect a lot when he put his body and blood on the line for the cause. But okay, he's not just a man of word, he's a man of action. I respect that.
okay, so this is Winterfell. So, Roose Bolton examines the history of Winterfell. Of course, he does. The long-time seat of House Stark, now in possession by his own damn house.
Okay, this will be an annoying take. Can I tell already?
Brandon the Builder, founder of House Stark, raised Winterfell with giants over 8,000 years ago. Or so nursemaids tell all the children of the North. The children nod, wide-eyed, unaware of the lesson forced on them, that if even giants obeyed a Stark, so too should they. But like every other castle, Winterfell was built in pieces over thousands of years. The first men settled there because of the hot springs that bubbled through the ground. The water and the heat helped them survive the northern winters, and they built defenses to keep it for themselves. Nobody raised the castle all at once. Probably nobody meant to raise a castle at all. In those days, the Starks were not the greatest house in the north, and Winterfell was not the greatest castle. Barristan was the oldest, dating to the first king, and the Starks fought the Barrow Kings for 1,000 years. Greywater Watch was, like the Crannoch men themselves, the strangest. Only marriage subdued its marsh kings. But the greatest rival to Winterfell was always the Dreadfort, and my ancestors, the Red Kings of House Bolton. If tales can be believed, we fought from the long night until the Andals came. Because of us, Winterfell raised its first walls. When we took and burnt the castle anyway, Winterfell built
Of course
more
you
keeps,
did.
more walls, more guard towers.
That's a Bolton thing.
They expanded the granaries and larders to survive our sieges. They tended the godswood to win favor with the old gods against us. As the castle grew, more farmers and villagers flocked every winter from across the north to huddle under its walls, raising the winter town. In the spring, these villagers would find themselves marching in the Stark armies to fight against us. The greatness of Winterfell is as much our doing as the Starks. But in the end, neither its stone walls
Of course
nor
he
its
believes
tall
that.
keeps and iron gates could save Winterfell. At its height, it could have lasted a year under heavy siege, but a handful of Ironborn seized it in the night, while its lord, the king in the north, was playing in the south. My dagger
my
ended
God.
his reign, and now House Bolton
Yuck.
holds the castle of our ancient enemies.
Not
The
for long.
direwolf no longer flies from the battlements above me, nor guards the doors and cornices of Winterfell against me. Below me, miles of long-dead Starks fade into darkness and obscurity, until even their faces are lost. Some Northerners whisper that they wait for the day their house will rise again.
It
They
will.
wait forever.
No, you will be waiting forever to be a great house, Bolton. It won't happen.
You really showed him.
It's pissing me off. Oh, they'll wait forever. Get off
no.
it. Sansa's there. Sansa's ready. I mean, she's been taught by Littlefinger. Hopefully Theon will have his day. Jon Snow hopefully comes with Stannis. Who knows?
We'll see. One can hope. No one wants the Starks to prevail more than me.
I want that direwolf banner to be flapping in the wind.
I'm putting my faith in Stannis at the moment. One can hope. Robert's Rebellion. Barristan Selmy details how Robert's Rebellion was a pivotal war for House Targaryen and resulted in the end of their reign of power.
It'll be nice to hear from Sebastian Selmy.
Yeah, unfortunately, may you rest in peace. Yet another great man and
Yeah.
character in Game of Thrones taken from us too soon.
Yeah.
Barristan the Bold, they call me to my face. I know what they say behind my back. Barristan the Old. And it's true.
Aww.
I am old, with hair as white as all the winters
But
I've
still
seen.
mighty.
The older a man grows, the less sleep he needs. These days, I barely sleep at all. When darkness falls over this strange city, I find myself visited by the faces of the kings I have served, the faces of those
wow.
I swore to protect, the faces of those I failed. All I ever wanted
Poor guy.
was to live a life of honor, defending a king worthy of service. During the War of the Ninepenny Kings, I sought out Malus the Monstrous, last of the Blackfire pretenders who had started this whole war. Malus believed that his Targaryen blood gave him a claim to the Iron Throne. I made sure his blood claimed nothing more
What's that
than
second
the dirt
face?
around his corpse. To show his gratitude, the king elevated me to his king's guard. It was the proudest moment of my life. But that
Damn.
king died, and I wasn't with him. Not that I could have saved him if I had been, but still, I vowed to do better with his son, the young Prince Aerys. For 20 years, his reign was peaceful and prosperous. Aerys was well loved by his subjects and respected by his lords. But as years
Until?
went on, Aerys' temper soured. He became obsessed with dragons and fire, and the swords of the king's guard couldn't defend him from the enemies he saw lurking in every shadow.
Yeah.
My king went mad.
Became
But there was
paranoid.
hope. His son and heir. Prince Rhaegar was everything a kingdom could hope for in a ruler. He was strong but gentle, wise and cautious. And a
Who's
good
next in
friend.
line?
No matter the wounds Aerys dug into the realm, we had faith that his son would sew it back together again when he ascended the throne. Then came Lord Went's tourney at Harrenhal, the largest ever in Westeros. I unhorsed every man against me until only Prince Rhaegar remained. We each set our feet in our saddles and lowered our lances.
That was
and
the final
charged.
battle.
And I fell. Muddy and bruised, I then watched Rhaegar present Lyanna Stark with the victor's crown of roses.
Yeah.
Jordan Finger spoke about
To
this.
Robert Baratheon. And Rhaegar himself was married to Elia Martell. We all know what happened after. If I'd been a
Damn,
bit
man.
quicker with my lance, if I'd chosen a faster horse, perhaps I could have spared the kingdom from the destruction that came after.
Wow.
Or if
Imagine
I'd
that
fought
on your
interesting.
shoulders.
Stark against his rashness. He came to King's Landing himself, demanding Rhaegar return his sister. Poor fool. If he'd only known the depth of Aerys' madness, he wouldn't have dared provoke him. Aerys ordered Brandon imprisoned, and I could do nothing but obey. When Brandon's father, Lord Rickard
damn.
Stark, came to King's Landing to beg for his son, Aerys burned him alive, and I could do nothing but watch. I had
Damn,
sworn
man.
a vow to a mad king, and was honor bound to obey him,
Imagine that
even
predicament.
at the cost of my soul.
Yeah, wow.
Ravens
That's
soon
interesting
arrived with
perspective.
dark news for the king. The Vale was
Myself.
in open revolt. Demanding Lyanna Stark's return, Robert Baratheon was smashing any army that dared face him. Eddard Stark, Brandon's younger brother, was marching the whole of the north down the neck and had taken Catelyn Tully, Brandon's betrothed, for his own, thus winning the support of the Riverlands. The king sent ravens to Casterly Rock to beg his former hand, Tywin Lannister, for help. And no ravens returned. A plan was
Oh,
devised.
don't we know it?
Prince Rhaegar would personally lead the royal forces, now reinforced with 10,000 Dornishmen, north to face Robert. Of the King's Guard, Lewin Martell and I would ride with the prince. Before we left, the prince confided in me that when he returned from this battle, there would be a great many changes in court. Despite my vows to the king, I confess I was excited. On the march to face Robert's army,
That day couldn't
we were
even
sure we'd
happen.
win. We had superior numbers, and we had Prince Rhaegar. His presence lifted the spirits of our men, and he looked every inch the king he was destined to become. But at the Trident, the gods played a cruel joke. Robert proved
Damn.
the Baratheon words as his army smashed through our lines. Lewin Martell was killed. I fell in combat, badly wounded, and could do nothing but watch as Robert's warhammer ended Rhaegar's glorious reign.
Shit.
And the kingdom that would never be washed away down the Trident with his life's
Yeah.
blood.
Wow.
But Robert spared me, insisting his personal maester tend to my wounds, out of respect. But respect for what? A king's guard shouldn't survive one king, let alone two, and one who should have been. I swore an oath to House Targaryen, and I failed them. All that's left of their fire is a single ember halfway across the world.
And he
surrounded
fought so
by
hard to get there
darkness.
too.
If the gods were good, I would still be young in the fullness of strength. But whatever the cost, I will not let this ember go out. This time,
Damn.
I will not fail.
Oh.
Well, he didn't, because he did set her into motion. But damn, man, that was probably my favorite one so far of this Histories and Law. That was really insightful.
Yeah, damn. But
Just
imagine
hearing it all
that.
from the perspective of
Yeah.
Barristan Selmy is a very different events, because, you know, we're obviously biased towards the other side generally, but I really sort of felt for the Targaryen reign through that series of events,
Yeah.
especially Barristan Selmy.
It's interesting, isn't it? That tournament literally set the course of future events. Like, if Sir Barristan won, who knows? Like, he wouldn't have been able to give that reef to Elia Martell.
Yeah.
And then all of this wouldn't have happened.
He didn't give the reef to Elia Martell, he gave it to Stark, but it was meant to go to Elia Martell.
Yes, you're right.
Yes. But what I wonder, because we've heard that Rhaegar had kidnapped the Stark and abused the girl, and
Yes,
that's why the
Sansa
brother
said
had
that.
yeah, that's why the brother had first come to, you know, ask for her release.
Yeah.
So, but Barristan's version makes him seem a lot more honourable, noble than the one we've gotten. So it's interesting.
Yeah, because
I wonder which part's true.
Yeah, because Sir Barristan literally wanted him to be king, saw like a better future through Rhaegar's ruling. So
And he acknowledged that the Ares was a mad king. So he's like, I assume somewhat at least he's not blinded. He's like, all right,
yeah.
he's a mad king, but Rhaegar was the future. He was a good king, you know?
But then again, he was the king's guard rather than a guard for Rhaegar, so he wasn't with him all the time. He may not have known all his like whereabouts and wrongdoings and things like that. But in the presence of so many people, he could have been that, you know, positive light that everyone wanted. Yeah, damn. I do feel sorry for him because, again, I know you said technically he didn't fail, but the way he would see it is he failed. He didn't get Dany to where she was meant to be, where he wanted her to be.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Yeah, damn. Okay, so Dawn. So Ilaria Sand recounts the history of Dawn, illustrating how the region was united and eventually included into the Seven Kingdoms.
Before the Seven Kingdoms, before the Iron Throne, there was Dorne. 12,000 years ago, the first men crossed the land bridge from Essos to here. Of course,
Wow,
they were
so
men,
even
so
before
they soon
everything.
broke it. Then, while their cousins to the north built kingdoms, the Dornish squabbled over land, water, and wives. For centuries. Until Nymeria, a warrior princess in Essos. She led a fleet of 10,000 ships across the narrow sea to Dorne.
Love the music,
Almost
man.
all of the petty lords made it clear that she wasn't welcome. All but one, Morse of House Martell. He saw in her a strength to match any man, including his rivals. After she accepted his marriage offer, she set fire to her ships. For 50 leagues,
we know that,
the
remember?
coast was bright as day.
So Martell's a
And
part
in the
Valyrian
burning
then.
light, Princess Nymeria named Morse Martell the Prince of Dorne, in the style of her
Prince
people.
of Dawn.
Dorne would be her home, or her grave. For many years, Nymeria
Now we know where all
and
the strong
Morse
women
waged
come
war
from.
against all rivals. The Jordanes, Blackmonts, Corgyles, and even the mighty House Ironwood. They sent no fewer than 6 self-styled kings to the wall in golden chains. After Morse fell in battle, Nymeria took command of his armies and united Dorne. In 2 years, she ruled for 27 more, and though she married again, those husbands were little more than counselors and consorts. Dorne was Nymeria, and Nymeria was Dorne. She survived a dozen attempts on her life, put down 2 rebellions, and threw back 2 invasions. And when
No wonder why
she
Arya
died,
loved her.
Her eldest child succeeded her, her daughter, not her son. And Dorne followed her because Nymeria had proven that women were equal to men, if not better. Centuries
after all
later,
that-
Aegon Targaryen sought to unite Westeros as Nymeria had Dorne. The other 6 kingdoms fell quickly before his dragons and ambition. When his sister wife, Rhaenys, flew her dragon south and demanded our surrender as well, Princess Meria Martell warned, "I will not fight you, nor will I kneel to you. Dorne has no king. Tell your brother that." Rhaenys
I love that
threatened the next time
confidence.
the Targaryens would come with fire and blood. Meria replied, "You may burn us, my lady, but you will not bend us, break us, or make us bow.
Dude, I rate
Unbent,
that.
unbroken,
You are
or
not
whatever.
Unbound,
it is.
yeah.
Return at your peril."
Wow.
Rhaenys did, and she died. Her dragon died. All her soldiers died.
Oh,
Eventually,
shit.
her brother, the Conqueror, conceded that what Nymeria had done, he could not undo. Generations later, another foolish Targaryen invaded Dorne. He died as well. Eventually, we did join the 7 kingdoms, but when we wanted, and on our terms. If
Yeah,
dragons
the
could not
Martell
conquer
way.
us, why should we fear lions? Unbowed, unbent,
Bent,
unbroken.
unbroken.
The words of
Punchy house
Martell.
words.
The words of Dorne. Men may forget, but women always remember. When we were divided,
True.
Nymeria united us. When we were invaded, Meria defended us. Now Dorne has been humiliated, its prince murdered. Who will rise to avenge us?
Shit. dude.
Alaria.
So it's interesting though, because it says it's always female led, but when we come in, both princes are men. So
yeah.
obviously
Yeah.
that's changed subtly, but Oh man, it's meant to miss Oberyn again, dude. He was just such a great character.
I know. The power of Dawn, it was just fiery within him. And
I hope this all sort of foreshadows the demise of Cersei and I say the Lannisters, excluding Jaime and Tyrion, who I like, but screw the rest. Because Dawn's, she's powerful, and I think now they've got the reason to go take it to the Lannisters.
oh, I can't wait, honestly. I mean, I feel sorry for Jamie and Bronn. Like, they're there, and I hope they're not the ones that suffer for this. But
True.
yeah, who knows? But Nymeria is honestly a beast. Like, no wonder why Arya loved her. No wonder why Arya called her direwolf Nymeria. It just holds so much meaning for her, for who Arya wanted to become and is working towards. So I'm loving it. So the seven-pointed star, the High Sparrow, describes the book, The Seven-Pointed Star, and its connection to the religion, the faith of the seven.
The father reached his hand into the heavens and pulled down 7 stars, and one by one he set them on the brow of Hugo of the Hill to make a glowing crown. The maid brought him forth a girl as supple as willow, with eyes like deep pools, and Hugo declared that he would have her for his bride. So the mother made her fertile, and the crone foretold that she would bear the king 44 mighty sons. The warrior gave strength to their arms, whilst the smith wrought for each a suit of iron plates. But sadly, the gods no longer walk the earth among us, and you can see what a mess we've made of their creation since. Yet we have hope. The gods didn't abandon us in silence, but gave us their holy words to guide us, collected in the oldest and holiest text of the faith of the seven, the seven-pointed star. Divided into 7 books for the 7 aspects of God, in it we learn of the Father's justice, the Mother's mercy, the maiden's innocence, the crone's wisdom, the warrior's strength, the smith's labor, and the stranger's peace. It is a long book. Many never read it in its entirety, even if they could. When the Andals first sailed for Westeros, filled with divine fire, every warrior carved a 7-pointed star into his body, for even that was easier than carving its namesake into his mind.
Wow.
No one could perhaps argue that it wasn't the warriors, but the Septons and Septors, armed with the holy text of the 7-pointed star, who truly conquered Westeros. The first men had no letters, but the runes they would scratch onto rocks. No gods, but the faces they would carve into trees. But then came our holy men and women among them, bearing the very words of the gods under their arms. Trees and rocks were no match for the 7-pointed star, and most of Westeros soon turned to the faith and to its guardians, their new Andal overlords. Whilst the Andals soon fractured into warring kingdoms, the faith remained whole and indivisible, bound together by the 7-pointed star. When those kingdoms fell to Aegon and his dragons thousands of years later, the faith remained subject only to the 7 above and the 7-pointed star below. Or so it was supposed to be. Too often, our High Septons have lost their way.
Oh, don't we know it?
Worldly wealth and power. No matter. We still have the 7-pointed star. Men's will and virtue may fail, but the
I hope the High Sparrow
never do.
doesn't
As men
get
bow to
tainted
their
by all of that.
lords and lords to their kings, so kings and queens must bow before the 7 who are one. The knees of the powerful work the same as the knees of the weak, and were given to all for the same purpose, to bend before the gods, or break in the bending.
Shit. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I'm definitely skeptical about him because I could just see him being a lot darker and creepier, and we've already seen they're very brutal. So,
well, he's not dumb. He knows Cersei. He knows that arming the sparrows wasn't gonna be for the side of good.
no, they're against sin basically, but then it's who decides what's sin and what isn't. You know,
But the thing is, He's heard all the rumors, I'm sure of it, about Cersei and Jaime, which is literally a sin, and everyone spits on
it
that.
might backfire. I've thought about that. They're only just coming to power. They might backfire.
True, I hope it does backfire, but the fact that she can go, oh, like, you know, all these gay men, that's a sin, but hers, incest, yeah, I don't know, crazy. But Cersei did say the faith and the king of the pillars, one of those crumble, the whole thing crumbles. So it's really important for this world that that is set in place.
So the Faith Militant. The High Sparrow explains the history of the Faith Militant and its troubled relationship with the Targaryen dynasty.
Today, men know the Seven as statues in the septs, but in the old days, the gods themselves walked among men. They crowned Hugo of the Hill, the first king of the Andal people, and promised him that his descendants would rule great kingdoms in a foreign continent. When the time came, the Andals carved the seven-pointed star upon their bodies. And
That's
set
what Lancel
sail
was
for the strange
doing.
land across the narrow sea, Westeros. Whilst Andal warriors battled the first men for kingdoms, Andal septons battled for souls, and were received just as courteously. We don't know how many bold and pious men lost their lives, but adversity bred strength. Our purest and most righteous believers took up the sword to defend and preserve the faith from its enemies. So was born the Order of the Faith Militant. When Aegon the Conqueror landed in Westeros, the High Septon locked himself in a sept for 7 days and 7 nights.
Wow.
Finally, the crone lifted her golden lamp and showed him the path ahead. The High Septon himself would anoint and crown Aegon as Lord of the Seven Kingdoms, and the Faith Militant rallied behind Aegon in governing his newly united land. Yet Aegon and his sisters never wholly accepted the faith. The High Septon had conceded Aegon's marriages to his sisters as a relic of his Valyrian heritage, which would soon fade.
That's why they don't go against it.
But when Aegon's heir wed his daughter to his son, the faith could brook such abomination no longer.
That's
the High Septon led the denunciation of the Targaryens, and all over Westeros the Faith Militant took up their swords against the dynasty and its supporters.
When they were armed.
The Faith Militant set upon and punished the Septon who had performed the ceremony. A few of the Faith Militant's more militant members even scaled the walls of the castle and would have slain the king and his family had a knight of the King's Guard not intervened. Frightened, the king fled to Dragonstone, where he soon died of cramps.
We saw
And
this
so
take 2
ascended
recently.
The king's younger brother, Maegor the Cruel. His first act was to challenge the Faith Militant to kill him if they believed his rule to be ungodly. To the Order's eternal credit, they accepted. Ser Daemon Morrigan proposed a trial by 7. Ser Daemon and 6 of the Faith Militant against the king and his 6 champions. It was a contest in which the kingdom itself was at stake, and the accounts and tales are many. But at the end of it, Maegor alone lived, proving that the throne was rightfully his.
Oh my
He mounted
god.
the Black Dragon, Balerion, and burnt down the Sept in King's Landing, while the Faith Militant were inside at morning prayers.
Wow.
The screams of the burning and dying men were said to echo throughout the city. Though Maegor had won the trial by 7, he demanded the complete destruction of the Faith Militant and the faith itself, if necessary. He made war upon the Order wherever he found it. Yet the Faith Militant would not surrender, raising armies of their own and turning Maegor's own lords against him. The Father's justice may not always be swift, but it is certain. One morning, Maegor was found dead on the Iron Throne.
Damn.
No one knows how. Maegor's cruelty died with
I wonder.
him. His successor saw the wisdom of a united crown and faith, and his hand reached an accord with the High Septon. As long as the Iron Throne defended the faith would put aside its own swords and its condemnation of the Targaryens.
And now it makes sense what
Perhaps the
Cersei
High
said.
Septon felt he had no course but compromise. Outlawed and hunted for years, the Faith Militant was but a shadow of its former self. Without its own guardians, the Faith would have to rely on corrupt, worldly kings and their corrupt, worldly courts. For thousands of years, the Faith Militant had stood watch over the Faith. And then, its sun set. Now, after years of war and destruction, of abomination and blasphemy, none can argue that we have been walking through darkness. Perhaps the time has come when the sun must rise again.
Shit. And we're seeing that slowly.
Yeah, wow.
But it does make sense what Cersei was saying. That's why if one of those fundamental structures crumbles, so does the other.
Yep.
Yeah, so you might be right. Like that guy, that High Septon, that High Sparrow probably is more corrupt than we think. I mean, learning more about the Sparrows, I don't know. It's just like, who's right or wrong? Like they're a
very brutal religion, it seems. Like they punish severely.
Yeah, and wow, like from our world, religion's meant to be about forgiveness and things like that, and that is just like no mercy whatsoever.
Although, really, let's be honest, even in our world, look at the history books, and that's actually very accurate. So we're looking at this modern 21st century of civility. That's not the realistic take, but I think that they'll play a big part in the stories to come. It'll be interesting to see how they develop and how much Cersei has potentially burnt her own foot, or whether they're... Oh, yeah, because Cersei's not even, like, Targaryen, dude. They're Lannisters, so it's even worse in that case.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know if Cersei sort of set her own demise here. I mean,
I hope so.
You can sort of see it with so many, Stannis and Dawn, and everyone's after Lannisters anyway, so the enemies are outgoing them, in my opinion. But we'll see. Time will tell.
I actually really like how Tommen decided to go about talking to the High Sparrow. Like, learning a little bit from this, that could have been a very dangerous and a very big move, a very big attack on the Faith Militant.
If it was Joffrey, it probably would have been really bad, but it would have been more interesting if it was Joffrey, to be honest.
Yeah, true. Joffrey just would have gone in there. He wouldn't give two shits. So Tommen was probably more level-headed in that sense. And that's what Cersei is, a little shit, that little smirk. I'm sure you're the king. You can go there, blah, blah, blah. Oh, you already armed them. You gave them everything that they've been waiting for centuries. And you think they're just going to give that up? I don't think so.
So that's where our Histories and Law for Season 5 concludes. The Dance of the Dragon, the remainder is spoiler territory for us. We're going to just stay out of it. As we mentioned in the intro, if you guys want to watch it, check it out yourselves and
we'll leave the link
enjoy.
in the description.
Just be mindful that it does have House of the Dragon spoilers, so it's up to you whether you want that or not. We hope you guys enjoyed these Histories and Law. A lot of information.
I really like this one about Essos.
Yeah, particularly focused on a lot of different elements, a lot of world building, and a lot of insight into, I think, what we've been seeing in Season 5 and probably what's to come. So that was really enjoyable.
Yeah, because the East is very mysterious and things like that. So although we've got the lore in Westeros pretty much down pat, and there are a few extra things that we're learning in Season 5, the laws and the mystical side of Essos is still a mystery. So yeah, it's interesting learning about that through this Histories and Lore video.
Yep. Guys, we'll see you all on the next episode of Season 5. Until then, take care of yourselves.
See you guys.